You hear people say that wealth is a state of mind, but how much truth is in that, as opposed to it being just a bunch of woo-woo, new age thinking? And if it is true, how do you actually accomplish that instead of walking around kidding yourself? Now, today, I'm going to share what the physicist turned spiritual master, Lester Levenson, says about this topic, and also share some of my own personal experiences on how changing the pictures I'm holding in my mind have had a profound impact on the abundance that I've been able to bring into my life. So I'm going to share all that with you today. So check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, the simple way to self-realization. So if you want total control over your mind and more happiness and abundance in your life, then you've come to the right place. So if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. You'll love what we show you. Primarily because what we do here is 100% experiential, meaning you don't have to believe me, you don't have to take any of this on blind faith. But all you have to do is just try what we show you, take it for checking, and see the results that you get. And if you're a regular here, you love the work that we do, and it makes a huge difference in your life, then let us know. Hit the like button below right now. And also share your gains and your experiences with the releasing down in the comments. And speaking of sharing, share this video with your friends. Share this wonderful method that has been given to us by Lester Levenson, because what Lester has given us is literally what every single person on this planet is looking for: peace, happiness, and abundance with ease. And speaking of Lester, I know many of you follow Lester's teachings. And for those of you who do, you're more than likely familiar with one of his more notable talks, in which he talks about how the mind is a creative instrument and that you are a creator. You're creating everything in your life, whether you realize it or not. And one of the things that Lester mentions in this talk is that if you want to increase your results, the amount of abundance that you have in your life, he says that anyone who can demonstrate $1 can demonstrate $1,000,000. Anyone can do that. The mind sets the size. And all you have to do is just take a look at how you're demonstrating the $1 bill and just put 6 zeros after it next time. Just take on the consciousness of the million. Now, chances are, when you hear that, it can be really confusing. I've seen a lot of people get confused over this because it's like, well, what the heck is he talking about? First of all, how am I supposed to observe what it is I'm demonstrating? I'm just getting a paycheck from someone. How do I put 6 zeros on that? And what does he mean by putting 6 zeros after the $1 that you're demonstrating? Does he mean visualizing a bunch of zeros? And see, a lot of us, we tend to kind of veer towards this idea of visualizing, because that's what a lot of these other self-help gurus, law of attraction type of people talk about, to reprogram your thinking, to visualize, to see yourself having it. It's all about visualization. But the thing is, visualization is a very tough thing to do, just to visualize something. And here's why. You see, you could put a picture out there, and of course, everything is a picture. And what Lester says is true. The mind is a creative instrument. If you have a picture out there with nothing interrupting it, that picture will manifest instantly, if not very, very quickly. But the problem is while you might put a picture of abundance out there and hold that in mind, what other pictures are you holding inside? Often subconsciously. There's a lot of pictures to the contrary, right? pictures and thoughts and feelings of I can't, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve it, it's too hard, it's not for me, I'm not that kind of a person, and on and on and on. I can't do it. And so if you have a bunch of that negativity inside of you and you try to put this positive picture over it, it's literally like trying to slap a Band-Aid on cancer, right? It's just not going to work. That's why a lot of people fail at visualization. And that's not really what Lester's talking about anyway. He's not talking about visualizing a bunch of zeros after whatever it is that you're already demonstrating. What he's talking about is expanding your consciousness, opening up your awareness, and just allowing it to happen. Now, what the heck does that mean? Heck, that even sounds more woo-woo than wealth is a state of mind. But to illustrate what Lester's talking about, I think a good story is what you might be familiar with. If you've heard about how people broke the 4-minute mile, because for a long time, that was a threshold that nobody could cross. Lots of people tried to run a mile in less than 4 minutes, and they did this for decades, and nobody can do it. So it kind of became a belief that it was just impossible for the human to do that. Until one day, one person broke the 4-minute mile. And guess what happened after that? A bunch of other people started doing it. I think to date now, it's like, 1,000 or so people have accomplished that. And so what happened? One person did it, and it started to open up other people's awareness. Oh, it's possible now. And if they can do it, maybe I can do it. And so it was just something that spread like wildfire in a way. Once that first person did it and just opened up people's awareness. So to make this point a little bit more concrete, I want to share how I've seen my results change by changing my thinking and see an immediate and forever shift happen when I started to change my thinking about certain ways in which money was coming into my life. Now, for a lot of you who follow this channel, you've heard me talk a lot about my journey in trading. I've been doing it for, I think, about 4 years now. And it's been an amazing journey because not only has trading taught me a lot about money, but it also has taught me a lot about releasing and a lot about myself. Now, when I first was learning how to read the charts and starting to put all this complicated stuff together, my results were like a roller coaster ride. I had some really crazy, incredible gains, but equally devastating crashes and falls. So it's just like, ooh, up and down, just trying to figure out what the heck am I doing? But once I started to get stuff dialed in and demonstrate to myself that I can reliably make profits, I found that for a period of time, those profits I was making were quite small. I'm talking about like 2, 3, or maybe 4 points. If it was a really good trade, maybe 6 points. When ideally, the trades that I'm looking for, especially because I'm doing these on an intraday basis, meaning I get in and out of the market in the same day. The markets I'm looking at, the ideal trades would be about like 10, 20, 30, sometimes even more than that points. And just for a frame of reference, 10 points in most markets is $1,000 per contract. So if I get into a trade and it moves 10 points and I have 2 contracts in there, that's $2,000 in that trade. Now, what I found was the profits that I was making were about 10% of what I ideally should be making. And I just couldn't seem to break through that barrier into making those bigger trades. They were just like non-existent. And this went on for a period of time. I'm talking about like a year, year and a half or so. I was just trading like this, and this is just the way that it was. And logically and strategically, I just couldn't find a way to break through that. Primarily because I found myself like back on my heels a lot of times. Like maybe I misread the market and I got stopped out in a couple of trades, meaning, the risk that I set in there, you know, got triggered and I was out of the market for a little bit of a loss. And so I'd be down a bit. But a lot of times where I would find myself back on my heels is when I just throw all of my analysis out of the window and I'm just trading off of pure emotion with no discrimination, which often had disastrous effects. And so I'd be down 10, 20, 30 points. And if I was looking for a big trade to just cover that gap again and get myself even and moving forward again, that I would start making a profit. I'd get into the right trade and it would go up maybe 10 points. I'm like, okay, yep, keep going, keep going. But then it would come back and I would still be holding on to it and it would stop me out. So what could have been a 10-point gain turned out to be like a 3-point loss. So that 30 points, now that deficit grew and grew. I was like, oh man, I'm digging myself into a hole. So strategically, in that situation, I just found it better to settle for the smaller profits. Hey, if I get 6 points, that's great. That just takes a chunk out of this deficit, and I'll just keep taking chunks out of it, get myself back even and moving forward again. And also, I would often find myself getting into a trade that was like a 30 or 40 point trade, and I would exit early because I'm just kind of comfortable taking that small little profit. Hey, a profit is a profit. And so I would cover, I would get out of the market. All right, I got a profit. And I would just see it keep on moving. It's like, gee, I should have stayed in that. And so that was the situation that I was in, and I just couldn't break out of it for quite a while. Now, at some point, I realized that trading this way not only was a lot of work because I'm doing a lot of work just for small little nuggets of success, but also it was kind of inefficient, especially when my typical risk was about 3 points whenever I get into a trade. That's the buffer that I would give myself if the market goes against me. And if I settle for a 3-point gain, that's basically like a 1-to-1 risk to reward ratio. Now, thankfully, I was right like 75% of the time. So, I can move forward quite easily, except for those disastrous days when I would just throw all common sense out the window. But I was like, this is not the ideal way to trade. And I need to basically, like Lester says, add some zeros to what I'm doing and be far more effective and let this thing be far easier than what it is right now. And so I released on it. And here's the thing, I didn't do visualization. I didn't do anything fancy. I did exactly what Lester says. And again, if you follow Lester, you've heard him say this again and again and again. Keep it simple. He calls it the KISS theory. Right? In the Army, they call it keep it simple, stupid. But Lester's nicer than that. He said, keep it simple, sweetheart. Right? So he's all about the KISS theory. Keep it simple. And so all I did was just the simple things, the simple releasing tools that Lester has given us, like letting go of the fear, like the fear of losing, right? That fear of risk, right? Get rid of that feeling of fear. Just eliminate it completely, once and for all. Get rid of this habit of trying to figure it out, right? Trying to overanalyze, think it to death, and get into a a higher state of intelligence where I just come from clarity and knowingness. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you. I'm going to get you to experience that here in a moment. But also, and most importantly, let go of beating myself up for the results that I'm getting. And also letting go of wanting to change things, right? Especially if I made a mistake, letting go of wanting to change that. Because that just keeps me stuck in the past, holding in mind something I don't want. And again, if the mind is a creative instrument and I'm holding on to this past mistake, guess what? I recreate that mistake again and again and again and again. And that's what Lester talks about when he says, examine your thinking. What is it that you're demonstrating? Observe it. And you see, you're creating that. So again, I just did the basics. And by doing the basics, what that accomplished was getting rid of the negativity, all those anti-programs I was talking about before. When I let go of beating myself up, it got rid of all those poor me stories and I'm not good enough and I'm stupid and on and on and on. Eliminating those sounds out of my head where they just don't play anymore at all. And also, it got me to quiet that mind. And what happens when you quiet the mind? You start to access a higher intelligence, a universal knowingness that has real answers. And it's something that you can experience. And again, I'll show you how to experience that in a moment. And so what happened was just doing this releasing, getting rid of the negativity, quieting that mind. It just occurred to me, oh, I can be confident and zero in on the right trades that are going to go for 10, 20, 30 points. And guess what? It started happening. And not only did it just happen once or twice, it was like that story about the 4-minute mile. Once that threshold was broken, it just started happening all the time. It was just like a total shift, a whole new reality. And that's the new reality. So it's like every trade, I'm at least making 6, 8 points, but oftentimes 12, 20 or more on each trade that I do. And still having that high 75% success rate, on nailing the right turns in the market. So this is something that we can look at, we can observe. And you might be thinking, well, that sounds good for you because you're doing something like trading, which has the opportunity to add those zeros to what you're doing. I'm just taking a paycheck. How do I change that? What do I do with my poor situation? That's not the question. Like Lester says, keep it simple. Just look at what's going on in your mind. Look at the negativity. See where it is that you're trying to figure out how. How are you going to get that abundance? Where's it going to come from? And you see, when you're asking yourself those questions, how am I going to do it? How is that ever possible? You're asking something that doesn't know, right? You're asking your mind. If it had an answer, you'd do it already. But you're asking something that doesn't know, and it's literally like looking in an empty file cabinet for an answer that isn't there. And out of habit, what we all tend to do, and you can observe this for yourself, we go back to that empty file cabinet again and again, over and over, day in and day out. How do I do this? How do I do this? You just keep looking in that empty file cabinet for an answer that isn't there, over and over again, without discrimination, realizing, hey, wait a minute, this file cabinet's empty. Maybe I ought to look somewhere else. And like I said, when you start letting go of the mind and stop listening to it, stop asking it and asking it for guidance. How do I do this? Show me how. You're going to get in touch with something that does have the answer, and it's not your mind. It's something that's more expansive, bigger than it. and something that gives you concrete answers. And so no matter what you're doing, you're going to find an answer to put 6 zeros to whatever it is that you're doing. And I'll show you how to start doing that right now. All right, so take a look to see if you've been trying to figure out how to dramatically increase what it is that you're earning in your life right now, what it is that you're creating financially. Just take a look, right? See if you're trying to figure out what to do. And for a little bit more clarity, take a look at how long you've been looking for that answer. Has it been months? Probably longer than that. Years? Decades? And so you see, you're looking in an empty file cabinet for an answer that isn't there. And isn't it silly to keep looking when there's nothing there? If it had an answer, you'd be able to act on it and actually have it right now. But it doesn't. So asking your mind is a waste of time. You see that. You've been doing it for long enough. And so enough's enough of that nonsense. Now, and here's the most important question. See if you've been beating yourself up over that, disapproving of yourself. And maybe it's not like overtly beating yourself up, but maybe just kind of wallowing in some poor me story. Oh, poor me, nothing goes my way. I'm so disadvantaged. I'm so unlucky, on and on and on and on. And how does that help you? And you're literally beating yourself up with those thoughts, disapproving of yourself. And what do you accomplish by disapproving of yourself? Zero. Nothing. Right? And who's doing that? You are, aren't you? So if you're doing that, disapproving of yourself, and it's not getting you good results, in fact, it's just digging you into a deeper hole, maybe now's the time to turn that around and make a better decision. So right now, just decide. I'm going to be positive and love myself, or I'm going to be negative and beat myself up. What do you decide now? I'm assuming you're deciding to be positive. Now, first things first, you see, you've been beating yourself up, disapproving of yourself, wallowing in those poor me stories. And you're doing that. So the first thing to do is let that go, right? You can't give yourself love truly. You can kind of tell yourself stories and pretend, but unless you let go of beating yourself up, giving yourself love, it's like trying to drive a car with a handbrake on. It's just not going to work. You're not going to get very far. So, first things first, could you let go of disapproving of yourself? And this is just a simple decision, yes or no. Right? You don't need to dwell over this or think it through or anything. It's just a decision. It's your decision. Could you let go of disapproving of yourself? Yes or no? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself some more? And a little bit more. And some more. And some more. And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And even more. All right? Now see how you feel now. And all we're looking for right now is just a lighter feeling. Just notice if you feel a little bit lighter than you did a few moments ago. Notice the difference? Maybe if you just feel a little bit more calm, a little bit more neutral, a little bit more confident and clear. And again, that's all we're looking for. Sometimes we're expecting big fireworks and a marching band to come through. No, it's just notice if you feel a little bit lighter. That's it. And that's huge. That's showing you that you're moving in the right direction now. And that you are in charge of how you feel. It doesn't depend on the circumstances or what somebody says or what happens. It's all up to you. It's your decision. I'm going to be positive or I'm going to be negative. Now, speaking of being positive, could you give yourself a little bit of approval? And again, you don't have to think too hard about this. This isn't like telling yourself sweet things, right? Oh, I'm so good. I'm a great person. I'm a rock star. Nonsense. No, it's more direct than that and simple. Could you like yourself? That's all. And could you like yourself a little bit more? And could you give yourself a little bit more approval? No reason, just because. Just because it's today. And could you give yourself a little bit more approval? And a little bit more. And some more. And even more. And could you give yourself some more approval? And some more. And even more. And even more. And could you give yourself even more approval? And even more. And see how you feel now. So you feel even lighter. And now, just to show that your picture is changing, and like we were talking about at the beginning of this, everything is just a picture. Notice if you just have a different picture. When you think about having more abundance in your life, see if it's more possible now. Now you might have a clear picture of, oh yeah, I can do exactly that and get it. Or it just might be a subtle sense of, yeah, I can, it's possible. I don't know how, but it's definitely more possible than it was a few moments ago. And you didn't have to visualize anything. You just had to let go of the negativity. And that awareness of, yes, I can, is now just showing up and making itself known. That's how it works. That's what Lester's talking about. And that's how you can start adding zeros to what it is that you're already doing and have a lot more of that abundance that you're looking for. It's that simple. And that, yes, I can, that's not coming from your mind. That's not coming from this thinking ego machine that's been talking to you. That's coming from a higher intelligence that gives you instant answers, clear answers. And the more you get that negativity out of the way, the more you access those clear answers, that clarity, that knowingness, constantly, all the time. Now, if you want to get to that place where you have that clarity and that positivity all the time, it isn't just doing this work a little bit here and a little bit there. It's really focusing in, doing the work, using all the tools that Lester has given us, keeping them simple and using them effectively. And that takes a certain degree of skill and commitment. And the best way to generate that and have that really work for you is by joining in a class where we all work together. A lot of like-minded people. You see what others are doing, you see the gains that they're getting, and you realize, hey, if they could do that, I can do it. And you see how simple the work is and what people are accomplishing. And that shows you how quickly you can get this method to work for you. And the best way to do that is joining us on the next 6-week course, which, by the way, is called the Wealth Manifestation Course. So if you're into abundance, this is a class for you. And it's starting this July. So I'll leave a link to it down below in the description. And this really is the key to realizing that you are a creator and demonstrating it. So if that's something that you're into, then click that link below and join us. We'll see you soon.